Good morning students, how are you today? Good. Today we are here and we are about to discuss about modern dance in Taiwan as well as modern dance in China. You know, modern dance in Taiwan can be discussed within the time frame of the late 19th to the present 21st century. The development of dance was triggered by the socio-political changes during that time, and one can see that there are three distinct stages of development which has influenced by the shaping of the history with both the internal and external forces. The evolution of dance went through the Japanese colonization period, the martial law period and the post-martial law period. So, three periods. The Japanese colonization period, which is spread between 1895 and 1945, that is, you can say till the end of the World War II, dance had a distinct influence of Japanese culture. Rhythmic movements were introduced as a part of school curriculum. Moreover, Western ideas were also brought into Taiwan in the 17th century. Music was introduced, but these were mostly church music and could not attract the Taiwanese, since, as you know, Christian conversion was not very popular in Taiwan. So, for centuries European culture could not crystallize and hence they could not overrule the Japanese powers. Well, then in the beginning of the 20th century, new technologies and information from Japan was initiated for the modernization of Taiwan. But the historians argue that this resulted in a complete change in the society of Taiwan. This only helped the colonizers to increase their control over this country. We find Samuel Pao San Ho commenting like this, that he is saying that as Japan became more urbanized and industrialized, the colonies were viewed for their agricultural products. As Japan's modern sector expanded, its colonies also became important as a source of fuels and industrial raw materials for its industries and a secure market for its manufactured goods like the textiles and all that. So, this naturally resulted in escalating various facilities like transport, environment consciousness, good health practices, which led to engulfing the cultural scene of Taiwan under the Japanese. The Taiwanese society now excelled with agriculture, industry and modernization in education, literature, visual and performing arts. However, the elementary school education embraced literature and Western rhythm classes. Western movement art thrived and we find visual art exhibitions and staging of performing arts for public were arranged often. Historical facts state that sketching and drawing was introduced in 1910. And the first official art exhibition was organized by the Japanese government in 1927, as early as that. It took a lot of time for the Taiwanese to accept Western dance during the Japanese period. In Taiwan, the Western dance that Japan promoted geared up after almost 40 years of rule by the Japanese here. Throughout the 1930s and the 1940s, only some Taiwanese girls studied Western dances. They travelled to Japan. These dancers came back to Taiwan and later became trendsetters of private dance education in Taiwan. These were upper class women and hence their performances received a special treatment from the audience. The first man of Taiwan who went to Japan to learn modern dance and ballet was Lin Ming-de. He gave several dance concerts in Taipei in the 1940s. One can now easily perceive that the traditional arts now faced the shock of this new trend, and hence the patronage to such arts receded. Thus, in the 1940s, a modernized Taiwanese meant tagging along Japanese idea of modern. This meant discarding the traditional and embracing the modern. Russell commented, given Western hegemony and cultural authority and its lavish display of modernity and material power in Japan and elsewhere, it is not surprising that in its attempt to catch up with the West, Japan began to identify with it and peripheralize cultural links with its Asian neighbors, whose influence on Japan waned with the expansion of Euro-American power in the Pacific. But An Juen Tai adds, however, Westernization was not the real goal of the ruler. Japanese cultural hegemony was what it was actually all about. This was obviously shown in the works of the new poetry by Taiwanese poets that were allowed to be written in Japanese only. This phenomenon was one of the evidence which reveals that through modern Western arts, Japan was ambitious about placing herself as the cultural center of the Asia Pacific. Consequentially, in Taiwan during the 1940s, the Japanese influenced modern Western art forms were perceived as the distinguished high arts, whilst the traditional dances, music, paintings and writings were ranked as low arts. As for dance, the Japanese influence established a foundation for future modern dance development in Taiwan. The martial law period is focused between 1945 and 1987. The martial law was announced in 1949. As the World War II came to an end, the nature of settlement changed in Taiwan. Two distinct groups were seen settling down here. The first group was the Taiwanese, who moved to Japan but returned after the Second World War, and the second group was from different parts of China, which determined the population of the nationalist government. Now, keeping the Japanese identity for Taiwanese aside, Chinese identity was imposed on the Taiwan society. Though the Western or modern trend continued, the identity in all sectors faced a different approach. A distinctive progress in dance was seen at this point. The dancers who learnt dance in Japan now settled in Taiwan and opened private schools of dance. Dance education gained prominence as it was included as an important subject in higher education in 1960s. The possibility of preparing dancers for future started with training students from age 8 to 18. The most important incident was the establishment of the famous Cloud Gate Dance Theatre. Among the dancers who came back from Japan after learning dance, Zai Jui Yue, Lin Xiang Yun and Li Zai O were very popular. They were the pioneers in opening the first private dance institutions in Taiwan in the 1940s. They mostly taught ballet, but there was an expensive endeavor. This ballet, learning of ballet was an expensive endeavor and hence was mostly restricted to the upper class practitioners. Zai and Li were students of Baku Ishii in Japan. Baku Ishii was the only Japanese student of Emile Jacquero Dalcroze in Dresden and studied eurythmics and ballet. He was one of the front-ranking dancers in Japan. Lin, however, studied in Shochiku Film Company. She taught through her private institute and also created a musical group which is called the Isia, with only girl participants and was very popular in 1960s. These institutions based themselves on European techniques of dance, especially the German Expressionism, which traveled to Taiwan passing through Japan. The higher education institutes proposed to teach dance in 1952. Initially, they started as rhythm classes, but later the National Taiwan Normal University marked these classes as dance classes. This was as early as 1962. These classes were taught by both Taiwanese dancers as well as Chinese settlers. Madam Liu Fengshui started the first classes in the university. So now dance as an academic subject gained importance and status. Many other universities, institutes and colleges, they came forward and they started introducing dance in their curriculum. The first department of dance was established at the Chinese Culture Academy in 1964. This academy is now the Chinese Culture Academy from 2005. In 1970, the National Taiwan Academy started a dance department, and in 1971, Tainan Junior College of Home Economics introduced dance in their college. In 1983, the Taipei National University of the Arts, formerly the National Institute of the Arts, created the Department of Dance. So, along with such serious works in dance as a subject, for students of other subjects were encouraged to join dance clubs in colleges and universities. Here ballroom dancing, jazz, ballet and other popular dancing were encouraged. This effort helped in building up of appreciative dance audience. The Ministry of Education initiated a policy to establish dance classes at school levels for talented students. Schools at every county and city were selected and dance was introduced from the elementary to secondary level with grades to be marked in their courses. The dance courses included traditional dance, creative dance, improvisation, ballet, Martha Graham technique of modern dance and productions. This step of the ministry helped propagate dance education extensively, and young performers got training to become a plausible dance artist. But at the same time, there were restrictions imposed on dance productions during the martial law period. In spite of all such limitations, the works of Tsai Jui Wei is worth mentioning. Her productions during 1950s and 1960s are admirable. In 1957, she held a workshop conducted by Eleanor King from the US. King taught Doris Humphreys dance technique. This occasion initiated American influence on the progress of dance in Taiwan. In 1967, Tsai requested Yon Zhen Liu from the US to teach Martha Graham's dance technique. This was the first Graham lessons taught in Taiwan. Many Taiwanese dance students and practitioners joined. They were greatly benefited from these workshops. One very important person was amongst them. He was Lin Wai Min. He established the internationally renowned Cloud Gate Dance Theatre. In 1973, the first professional dance company of Taiwan was instituted by Lin Wai Min. Lin, with his productions like Han Shi in 1974, The Tale of the White Serpent in 1975, and The Dream of the Red Chamber in 1983, could gratify the nationalist government's quest for Chinese ethnocentric principles during the martial law period. He did this through his modern dance idiom. The themes for his choreography basically evolved around the emotions of Taiwanese people on the broader context of China and Asia. However, he also challenged the censorship of the government by praising productions like Taiwan's Frontiers in Legacy, produced in 1978, and using Taiwanese songs in My Nostalgia, My Songs in 1986. The Cloud Gate Dance Theatre toured extensively in Taiwan's villages and had taken up the responsibility to popularize dance in Taiwan. Slowly, it changed people's discernment about modern dance and behaviors in the theatres. From its success, people in Taiwan started to accept dance as a proper profession. It successfully convinced the spectators to come to the show on time, not to take photos, sit silently without eating or drinking during the performances. The Cloud Gate Dance Theatre created a fresh cultural drift in Taiwan for the privileged class, the rich and the educated, by bringing them to attend its dance presentations. It also performed on the outdoor stages in lesser known cities and villages and performed for the poor and illiterate people. They toured internationally to every corner of the world, including countries like the US, South America, Europe, and Asia. In July 1987, the martial law was withdrawn. Now, the modern dancers took all liberty to come out with expressions that were free and open. Activities with people of the other parts of China increased and a cross-culture endeavor surfaced. At this point, the Cloud Gate Dance Theatre faced a huge financial crisis. The institute closed down in 1988. The members of this group started to compose on their own. They established their own companies and practiced their creativity through these. After 3 years in 1991, the former members of the Cloud Gate Dance Theatre got together and decided to reopen the dance theatre. A grand comeback was arranged with the production of Aureole, a famous composition of Paul Taylor. Lean choreographies were also included for the performance. Thus, the occasion happened to be fresh wine in an old bottle. Cloud Gate Dance Theatre stood as a connection between the old and the new, the east and the west, the cities and the villages. In 1999, a Cloud Gate 2 was opened for children, and it prepared the future generation dancers and choreographers. The education of dance was equally prioritized, and several colleges and universities opened departments of dance. Tainan Junior College of Home Economics gave a separate identity to its dance division of the Department of Music and opened the Department of Dance. 2 new dance departments were initiated at Taiwan's physical education colleges: National Taiwan College of Physical Education in 1996 and Taipei Physical Education College in 1998. At present, there are 6 dance departments in various universities. Throughout the 3 historical eras, the field of modern dance in Taiwan, forced by a variety of influences, gradually developed into a momentous art form. It went from being a simple school focus to a moderately reputable career. Nevertheless, disputes in modern dance in Taiwan continue to be present. For example, in the contemporary era, the movement of globalization is a key area for people's everyday life as well as Taiwan's contemporary dance progress. Changes that take place consequently are affecting the development of modern dance in all directions. Further outcome of the changes, chances and responsibilities for Taiwan's modern dance needs to be in close survey and prospects monitored through research. Apart from choreographers in Taiwan, other cities like Beijing, Shenyang in China have also cradled modern and contemporary dance evolution. Actually, the dance development in China has seen integration of various forms of dances. The three trendsetters of modern dance in China, Yu Xiaobang, Dai Ailian and Xia Zhuoguang, have always tried to preserve the national character of China and Chinese culture. They coupled innovations and free spirits with indigenous characters in productions like March of the Volunteers, Song of the Guerrillas and Fire of Hunger. These productions are considered as the assets of China. Yu Xiaobang, born in 1906, was influenced by the new culture movement of May 4 and actively joined progressive campaigns. Between 1929 and 1936, Yu visited Japan to take training from Takata Masao and Iguchi Takaya. He was quite influenced by Isadora Duncan and Mary Wigman. He established the Xiaobang Dance School in Shanghai in 1932 and the Xiaobang Dance Research Institute in 1935 to popularize new dances. The themes in his choreographies included contemporary problems and human feelings. In the early 1960s, Yu founded Tianma Dance Arts Studio. Here, he introduced his own teaching methods and produced works like The Great Ambuscade, Three Variations of Plum Blossom, Wild Geese, Landing on the Sand, and many others. He served many institutes as scholar and teacher, including Chinese National Academy of Arts. Dai Ailian, born in 1916, learned from Ju's modern dance school. She started working in the early 1950s after the People's Republic of China was formed in 1949. She is bestowed with the credit of choreographing the first ballet in China. The ballet was Dove of Peace. Her other choreographies, Dance of Lotus, Flower and Flying Apsaras, depict her patriotic feeling for her country, and these have been recognized as classic dances of China in the 20th century. All her compositions drew inspiration from different Chinese dances. Dai served as the first dean of the Beijing Academy of Dance, director of the Central Song and Dance Ensemble, vice chairman of the Chinese Dancers Association, and many others. Xia Zhuoguang, born in 1923, started his dance learning from the Manchuria Film Association. He then became the disciple of Baku Ishii of Japan. His choreographies speak of his immense talent in dance. His solo compositions, Hometown, Soul of the State, Devil, depict his patriotic feelings. Well, during the 1970s and 1980s, a new leaning in the dance of China was perceived. Western modern dance was explored and Chinese dance world began to follow this trend. The two cities that hosted this new movement were Beijing and Guangzhou. The first experimental modern dance class opened in Guangzhou province in 1987. And in 1991, the Beijing Dance Institute, also known as Beijing Dance Academy, formally started its dance teaching and research unit. This institute offers masters and bachelors in dance. There were three specialities in the institute: performance, choreography and dance studies. The institute offers ballet and Chinese traditional dances. Famous modern dance artists from America, Britain, Sweden, Canada, Australia like Sarah Stackhouse, Ruby Shang, Douglas Nielsen, Claudia Gittelman, then Lucas Hoving, Birgit Atkinson, Ren Lu Wang and Chang Qing were invited to take classes for body training and choreography. With such exposure to modern dance idea, Chinese dancers now started to secure their position among the world dance scene. In 1990, the choreographers Queen Liming and Kuo Young won gold medal at the 4th Paris International Modern Dance Contest. The choreographies presented were Passing Voice, a choreography of Cao Cheng Yuan, and Impression of Taiji. In 1994 and 1996, the Chinese dancers Xing Liang and Sang Jijia won the gold medal again at the 6th and the 7th Paris International Modern Dance Contest. They performed choreographies of Chao Cheng Guan as well as their own compositions, The Light and Dangling. This brought into notice the works of Chinese choreographers in the world of modern dance.